And then there was the debut of the Ninja NWO with chainsaws, a new faction calling itself Retribution, which is defined as the act of taking revenge. And that has some people thinking that maybe it could be a collection of disgruntled former talents that were released from the company back in April, coming back for revenge. That doesn't make any sense when you really look at the list of people that they let go. Very few of those people are even available anymore. You know, Anderson and Gallows, Heath Slater, Kurt Hawkins, Eric Young, EC3, Zack Ryder. And say it was those guys, right? And then there were other ones, by the way, like Rusev, who I don't think is coming back. But you've got Rusev and Aiden English and Mike and Maria. I think they're still available. But look at all of the names I just mentioned, maybe except Rusev, who I still think there's definitely value in him as a bigger star than he was being positioned as. But look at most of those names. They were job guys in WWE. And I hope people like EC3 go on to have great success, but they were job guys. They were nobody. They were treated like nobodies in WWE when they actually were on TV, which was rare. They would end up right back where they were before. Why would anybody be excited about that? It's like the Job Squad coming back and getting revenge, retribution. Who cares? You give it 2 weeks, nobody's going to give a shit. So all around, even if it was going to happen, and I don't believe it is, I think it's a terrible idea. Now on Raw Monday night, we had lights flickering in the building, going off and on throughout the show, audio cutting in and out. And the reason being, security camera footage captured a group of 5 mystery people dressed in ninja-like outfits. They were black ski masks and hoodies, but from my vantage point, because I'm so used to seeing it on WWE television, they looked like ninjas. Caught in the parking lot, throwing Molotov cocktails at a power generator outside the Performance Center. If their mission was to knock the show off the air, they failed. They would have been massive baby faces had they succeeded. But they failed. But that didn't stop them from celebrating and jumping up and down before running away. I'm watching this and I'm thinking to myself, they look like children. They're throwing like little firecrackers at the generator, jumping up and down and celebrating and rooting and cheering for themselves. They look like children. They literally look like fucking children egging someone's house in their Halloween costumes that their mothers bought for them at Party City. They looked ridiculous. They made the Dark Order look intimidating, and that's not an easy thing to do. You know my thoughts on the Dark Order if you listen to my AEW reviews. They made the Dark Order look intimidating. Here we got the Dork Order. A lot of people like to say that about the Dark Order. The Dark Order is no longer the Dork Order. This is the Dork Order. So this carried over to Smackdown on Friday night. During the dirt sheet with Miz and Morrison, their mics started to cut in and out. During the Lucha House Party match, the lights started flickering. And then the heavy angle came at the end of the show. This was the new age WWE version of the Nexus angle from 10 years ago, this very summer. In fact, in June of 2010 is when the Nexus invaded. Now, I knew something was up here when they flashed the little copyright box on the bottom of the screen that usually goes up at the very end of the show, and that went up a few minutes before the end of the show. It was like in the middle of a backstage segment. It might have been the one where Mandy and Sonya were being pulled apart, and they if I remember, they flashed it up on the screen. I thought, well, that's kind of strange. I figured, okay, well, if they're getting it out of the way now, that means we're going to get some kind of abrupt ending. At the end of the show, I just didn't know what it was going to be. What it was a bunch of guys and girls in black ski masks and hoodies, the ninjas from Monday night, invading the ring with weapons. They chased Michael Cole and Corey Graves away. They flipped over the announce desk. They destroyed the ring. Sound familiar? If Nexus had a baby that grew up to be 5 feet tall, you'd have Retribution. Only here they attacked some of the PC trainees behind the plexiglass. They spray painted the plexiglass, the ring skirt, the ring steps. The ring mat. They were defacing everything. They had baseball bats. One of them brought out a chainsaw. I don't know where the fuck they got a chainsaw from, but one of them all of a sudden, boom, they have a chainsaw. The chainsaw was probably as big as they were. There's the chainsaw sawing through each of the ring ropes one by one. Not a single member of the SmackDown locker room came out to stop them. Even before the chainsaw came out. I can understand the chainsaw, right? You don't want to fuck with the chainsaw. But that was the last thing they did. They were already out there for minutes before that happened. Nobody bothered to try to come out and stop these people. And that's why I also keep drawing attention to the fact of how physically small they looked. Because again, the entire locker room is watching this. And you have an army of people who physically, I mean, they don't look very intimidating, and nobody bothers to come out and try to stop them from invading their television show and defacing their ring and their building. This is the place they have to work every week. They can't go anywhere else. It's always at the Performance Center. And you're just letting them have a run of the place. Nobody bothers to come out and try to chase them away or stop them or, look, grab weapons in the back. You got plenty of pipes and chairs and weapons in the back. Nobody came out. Nobody came out. It was actually the same problem that, you could point to with the Nexus angle. As great as the Nexus angle was carried out, it really didn't make any sense that nobody bothered to come out and they knew who they were, right? You look on the monitor, hey, it's those NXT kids. They think they're going to take over our show? Fuck these guys. And they should have went out there and chased them off. So you could say that was kind of a flaw in that as well, but here it made even less sense. There was nothing stopping them from grabbing some weapons from the bag and coming out and chasing off the invaders. But, as with Raw Underground, the other issue, the camera work here was shit. With the constant cuts. Now, eventually, when they chased the cameraman away, they had some kind of fixed hard camera from above. That was at least a little bit better. But the camera work here was absolutely awful. If you have motion sickness, I have no idea how you're able to watch these shows without taking a Dramamine pill. I really don't know. I'm not joking. I'm being serious. I don't know how some people who have really bad motion sickness are able to watch this television show. Cloverfield is one of my favorite movies. I loved that movie when I watched it in the theater. So much that I ended up seeing it 3 different times in the theater with 4 different people. And that first time, I can remember I was so excited because I was following along with the viral marketing for weeks, which I was pissed because when I watched the movie, the viral marketing didn't play into the movie at all. It was just a gimmick to get people interested in it, but I was following along all the clues and everything. I mean, I'm a sucker for monster movies, let alone a monster movie where the monster is destroying the city that I live in. So yeah, I was interested in this movie. But I remember going to see the movie, and I was sitting in the middle row. It was opening night, the biggest theater at the Regal Ewok in Times Square. They have this gigantic, it's probably 500 seats in this theater. And I'm right in the middle row of this theater. And I'm excited and I'm ready to go. And in the middle of the movie, I start to feel sick because of the shaky cam. You ever see the Blair Witch Project? Same thing. Handheld, meant to be shot like, it's being filmed by somebody, and the up and down and back and forth because people are running through the streets for half the movie. All of a sudden, I start to get sick. And I had to close my eyes, and I missed 15 minutes of the movie. I could hear it, but I couldn't see it because I was stuck. I mean, I was right in the middle. There's no way I was getting out of this row. And I'm just closing my eyes, and I am praying. I go, please, don't let me vomit on the girl next to me. I actually had one on each side. I went with 2 girls that I worked with at the time, and they were both sitting on either side of me, and I was just praying, please, this is really not going to end well. And thankfully it passed, but I went back to see it 2 more times, but I was smart. I took a pill before I went, and I was fine. I think people have to medicate that way before they watch these fucking shows. That was just one movie. I can't imagine having to do that every single week. Now, the imagery. I got a few emails from people and tweets from people who were put off by the imagery the WWE was going for, which is very obvious, right? We could talk about comparisons to, certain NWO angles or the Nexus angle. It's not like we haven't seen invasion-type angles in wrestling before. But clearly, we know what they were going for here, right? With the masks and the hoodies and the baseball bats, they were invoking images of the riots and the protests that we've had in the streets here in this country in recent months. And I don't fucking like it. I don't want to see this shit on a wrestling show when we still have things like this happening in the streets out there. Very real situation, very serious situation. Yes, I absolutely welcome there being more realism on the show. But this is not what I was talking about. When I talked about I've been talking about realism for years, before any of this even happened, okay? Not just this year. I've been talking about adding realism to these shows for years, because the biggest thing the WWE is missing is authenticity. And by the way, watching this angle, I know they were trying to play it off like some kind of real invasion, real coup was going on. Even what they did on Friday night, nothing came across as authentic. The thing that WWE is missing the most when it comes to promos, when it comes to their product overall, is authenticity. Nobody buys it. Nobody believes in it. There aren't many talents on the roster, I think, that you could really point to who people could buy into the way they used to buy into the biggest stars that this company made its name off of for all those years. You want to go back 20, 30, 10, 5 years. It's missing that. That authenticity is gone. It is too formulaic. It's just too structured. It's too good. It's too prepackaged. And that to me is one of the biggest knocks on the product. So I'm all for authenticity. I'm all for adding realism to the product. This thing, though, this sucks. The way they tried to portray this sucks. They think it's edgy. They think it's edgy to create their own version of that. It's not edgy. It's not cool. It's stupid. And it sucks. It's also a rehash of an angle that we already saw once before that was done better. And that's always the worst. That's always the worst. As they say, very few sequels can live up to the original. You'll get one every now and then, right? A Godfather or a Terminator or something. Very, very seldomly, though. If you're going to copy an old angle, you need to make it better. Now, I'm sure everybody has their own theories about who the people are and why they're there. I don't believe it's the released talents. I do believe it's NXT talents that are being called up. I do believe it's NXT talents being called over to Raw and SmackDown. I don't think it is a coincidence that Dominik Dijakovic and Tommaso Ciampa both blacked out their Twitter profiles. They went black. They deleted all of their tweets. Dijakovic was rumored to be moving to Monday Night Raw a few weeks ago. This is when Paul Heyman was still, there. And then it never happened. Chelsea Green, we know that there's at least a couple of women who were out there on Friday night. Chelsea Green is another one. She fired Robert Stone. They put Robert Stone with her. She started winning matches, and then she fired Robert Stone in an angle that actually didn't even air on TV. It aired on their YouTube channel. And we've seen plenty of Robert Stone on NXT in the months since. Chelsea Green hasn't been seen. She's in purgatory. So she's another name that may well be part of this. I'm very much in favor of introducing new faces to the show. But I thought the stuff they did on Monday and Friday was just way too goofy. More so on Friday. When I say Monday and Friday, I'm talking about this angle. I'm not talking about Raw Underground. Was way too goofy for me to actually take seriously. Now, could these people be decoys? The ones we saw on Friday night, could they be decoys? Could it be like the Black Scorpion angle in WCW, right? The Black Scorpion was coming out week after week. It wasn't Ric Flair under the Black Scorpion getup all those weeks, but when the reveal happened, it was. So just because we had a bunch of shorter-looking people who sounded a certain way, people think they can match the voices, whoever was under the masks on Friday night, that does not mean that those are going to be the people who end up being unmasked at the end of this angle. They could have just been stand-ins. Could they be working for somebody else? I think it's a sure bet. I don't think anybody that we saw in that ring on Friday night is the leader. That would get me a little more interested to see where they're going with this. Riddick Moss pinned Mustafa Ali on Main Event this week. The same Ali who just came back to TV after 7 months away is now on Main Event being pinned by guys who haven't been on Raw. I mean, the last time we saw Riddick Moss was probably before the pandemic started. And even then, he was a brand new face they had just called up. I think Ali is someone who would probably like to get some retribution. Maybe he has something to do with this new faction. I'm not saying he's necessarily leading the charge, but maybe he's got something to do with this. People assume he was going to be the Smackdown hacker. It looks like they dropped the angle. What if they didn't? What if Ali is the hacker? What if this crew is working on behalf of the hacker? Even if it isn't Ali, it would be nice for them to tie up that loose end instead of giving us another GTV, which never had any resolution, or giving us remember the whole Vince McMahon, Shane McMahon lockbox thing heading into WrestleMania? Boy, that went nowhere. We never did find out what that was all about. Some of these storylines just never get resolved. It would be nice for them to resolve that and tie up that loose end. But if they are going to debut some new faces, they need to do it right. Don't do to them what they did to the Nexus a decade ago, when they had something hot and they killed it. They sabotaged it through bad booking. If you're going to do this, do it right. Make new stars, but do it the right way. Chasing around cameramen and beating up PC trainees is dumb. Go after the stars. Make the stars actually act like they care about what's going on.